here we go. Now, Stephen A. Smith, he has his own show on YouTube, the Stephen A. Smith Show on his YouTube channel, where he does his thing, right? And recently he talked about how he is continuing to abstain from any support of Will Smith until Will Smith um, appropriately addresses the Chris Rock situation specifically to the black community. Stephen A. Smith feels as though Will Smith has not adequately addressed that incident, which at this point took place over 2 years ago, to black people. So that's his spin on this, is that Will Smith needs to address this with black people. He's addressed it already. He's already gone through his public embarrassment. He did that weirdo thing on this podcast where he took fan questions about it and all of that weird stuff that he was doing. So he's already done that kind of thing, but he needs to address it with black people, according to Stephen A. Smith. So go figure. But that's Stephen A. Smith's angle here with this. So this article says Will Smith still needs to explain Chris Rock's slap to black community. Stephen A. Smith says Will Smith still owes the black community an explanation for the infamous Chris Rock slap at the 2022 Academy Awards ceremony, according to Stephen A. Smith. On Sunday, which was June 9th, the famed sports commentator shared his thoughts on the incident via his YouTube channel amid news of Bad Boys Ride or Die attaining blockbuster status at the box office over the weekend. While he has supported the Philadelphia native since the ordeal 2 years back, he wants to see him, quote, sit down and talk to the black community about the moment he feels Rock will never get over that ever and is damaged because of it. We know you wouldn't have smacked Ricky Gervais, Bill Maher, Bill Burr, or a host of others, Smith said. We know you wouldn't have done that. No apology is necessary. I'm just saying a lot of folks ain't get over that. A lot of folks find it hard to just go to the movies to watch you. I'm one of those people. Upon the internet discussing his comments, Stephen doubled down on what he said in a post shared on X. Yep, I said it, he wrote, but I have some additional thoughts thinking about all that Will and Martin have done for us all, especially after talking to my man Charlie Mack. I've got more to say on the Stephen A. Smith Show /podcast tomorrow. So let's go ahead and end this. And here is what Stephen A. Smith said, or at least here's a piece of it. I'm not going to play the whole thing. But here's a piece of what Stephen A. Smith said, talking about how Will Smith needs to address this with black people.
Oh, my goodness.
He has to sit down and talk to the black community. You can see all the white people around Will Smith all you want to.
What?
Black folks have loved and revered this man for decades. He was the closest thing to perfection, as his friend Charlie Mack once told me, for decades. Everybody makes a mistake. This is not hatred. I love Will Smith still. But you got to have a conversation as to why you did that. And when you're apologizing, and when you're getting emotional, and when you're thinking about all the lives or the people that you've affected, it's primarily us as black people who have loved and supported you and watched you go on an international stage and slap one of us in the face and tarnished an historic event for one of the great black producers of modern times in Will Packer, possibly costing yourself and Antoine Fuqua an Oscar for Emancipation along the way. I'm not going to say what you did to the comedic community. Hell, Jim Carrey spoke about that along with various others. We know you wouldn't have smacked Ricky Gervais, Bill Maher, Bill Burr, or a host of others. We know you wouldn't have done that. No apology necessary.
What are you
I'm just saying. A lot of folks ain't get over that. A lot of folks find it hard to just go to the movies to watch you. I'm one of those people. And I never missed a Will Smith movie. Hitch, Concussion, all the Bad Boys movie from the first one to y'all with Gabrielle Union, who, by the way, should have been in 3 and 4, by the way.
Bro, what?
Along with a host of other things. I Am Legend, Independence Day, Men in Black, 1, 2, and 3. Will Smith, you're phenomenal. Phenomenal talent, phenomenal actor, phenomenal individual. You lost your way one night. We need to hear that from you. I'm sorry. That's what I need to do before I look forward to seeing your movies again, more than seeing a sit down.
All right.
Oh man, you gotta love this guy.
Boy, yeah. He's like a gift and a curse, man. All right. Well, there you have it. That's how he feels about this. He feels like this still needs to be brought up and it still needs to be addressed because he smacked a black person. What do you make of what he had to say?
I mean, I really don't know. And most of it was shocking because when I heard about this story, I was like, "Oh, is this like somebody pulled this up from like when it happened, or like what's going on here?" And it's like, "Nah, this is new. He's just not dropping this. He's expressing disappointment in Will Smith because, well, he thinks that the black community needs an explanation." Now, I don't know. I've heard a lot of race baited Stephen A talking points before, but I don't think I ever remember him saying that somebody has to explain themselves to the black community or apologize to the black community or anything like that, as if he's like really speaking for it. I don't know where he conducted this poll from. I don't know where he gathered his data for him to say that black people still care about this. Will we talk about it? Yeah, it's an iconic moment in history, but we all laugh it off. We thought it was a bit silly, but we've seen enough Red Table Talks to really know what Will Smith's going through in his home.
Yes.
So at this point, we just wrote him off as the weirdo that he just so happened to be. But nowhere in there did anybody ask or demand for an apology on that. And so for him to speak for or to act as if he's speaking for the black community is laughable. There's things that's on Stephen A. Smith's resume that he has done to black people that he has not explained himself to. And he hasn't apologized to the black community for. And there's been some black men out there that had a mistake of a moment and he just railed into them and just banished them to Hades. And with no remorse. And some of those people are still buried to this day. He tried his damnedest to end Kwame Brown's life. Every year, whenever there's something going on with somebody's contract, when they're coming up for contract extensions, negotiations, and stuff like that, he always gets to talking about people's characters and stuff like that, which ultimately has something to do with their market value. He has a career of doing these shady, suspect things to black people. So for him to sit there and say that he's speaking on behalf of black people for Will Smith to apologize for this whole thing or give us an explanation, I don't think Stephen A. Smith is in the position to be speaking for us. Because again, there's quite a number of things that I would like an explanation from him on. So this is, to me, is just hella ironic. It's completely out of left field. It's completely out of touch, if you ask me. I don't know why he would have to say this. If he wanted to give some type of cross promotion to Will Smith, this ain't the way to do it. So I think that he should have found something else to talk about that night or found another way to talk about this. But Stephen A. Smith does not speak for me. So, yeah, I think this is completely out of touch. But what are your thoughts on Stephen A. Smith weighing in, demanding Will Smith explain himself for his slapping of Chris Rock?
I think that Stephen A. Smith is taking advantage of the fact that Will Smith has a movie coming out to for content for his channel. That's what I think. Because he wouldn't even be suggesting that this is something that needs to take place if it weren't for the fact that the Bad Boys movie is coming out.
Correct.
So if this was something that was really striking a chord with you, it would have been something that was an ongoing theme on your own platforms for the last couple of years.
Correct.
But it wasn't. It's only a thing now because there's a movie coming out that people are going to see that Smith himself stands to benefit from. Rightfully so. He put the work in. He deserves to be able to benefit from that. That's how this thing works. So what this looks like to me is Stephen A. Smith is taking advantage of Will Smith's opportunity for gains in order to bring attention to his channel and his platform. Now, that is the way the content game works. You sort of siphon content from another source in order to bring attention to your own platform. So in and of itself, I'm not entirely turned off by that reality, but to parlay it into a referendum on blackness and how he needs to be able to speak to the black community on what happened there, that's the part of it that kind of seems a bit seedy in my opinion. Again, I wouldn't care as much if this was something that he had been lending his voice to for the last couple of years because he feels as though it's important that it happens. But it's only important that it happens now because this movie's coming out. If the movie wasn't coming out, we wouldn't be talking about this. And to parlay it into a racial conversation because he does not believe that Will Smith would have smacked a white comedian, I feel like that's low-hanging fruit. Because a white comedian wouldn't have done that, wouldn't have made that kind of a joke anyway. Like, none of those people would have done that because that's not their comedic styles. Like, the closest one maybe is Bill Burr, but Bill Burr don't talk about that kind of stuff. He talks about like women basketball players and all of that, and women who complain about stuff. So I kind of feel like that's low-hanging fruit because a lot of those comedians, that's not their comedic style. But it's easy for you to conveniently make that assertion because you are citing white comedians in and of itself. So I just kind of feel like this was a ploy to position himself as like an authority figure in terms of speaking on behalf of black people, which, like you, I kind of feel like maybe you're not the person for that job, even though I think in his mind he thinks he is. But I also think that it's just his way of trying to use the Bad Boys movie as an opportunity to have content that he can just talk about on his channel. And it just so happens to be this thing, which is kind of fizzled out. Ain't nobody really talking about this no more. So I don't know how much it's going to help the algorithm serve up that video on his channel because no one's really talking about this anymore because everyone, black people included, sees this as like an isolated type thing that overall is not a referendum on black people or families or any of the other themes that certain people tried to make this out to be. This was one rich dude with mental problems slapping another rich dude in public. It was embarrassing, but it wasn't a referendum on family values, or blackness.
Correct.
That is perhaps a referendum on how to best conduct your personal marriage and your personal relationship. Perhaps you can go that far, but that isn't like this that event didn't serve as a come to Jesus moment for us to reflect on how we're raising our families and how the black community looks at itself. Like it was not that deep. No one looks at it that way. This was two rich people getting into it in public and it was embarrassing. And so to try and parlay it into like a conversation about how you need to address the black community, black people ain't looking at it like that. They're not. Like, no one thinks that was an embarrassing moment for black people. No one thinks that. No black person thinks that. But I mean, I just think that I think Stephen A. Smith viewed this as opportunistic. And he's articulate enough to go on his spiel and make it seem like it's something that he feels passionately about. But again, if it really was, he would have been talking about this for the last 2 years, not just because he has a movie coming out.
Yeah, 100%. And there was also some part in there. It wasn't in this clip, but he was also talking about, I guess it was like pre-sales or something like that, and it wasn't matching projections for the show. Basically saying that the pre-sales or the whatever, it wasn't equating, and so Stephen A. used that as his leverage for talking points to say that people are turned off by Will Smith himself.
Yeah.
And so, which again, which was a hell of a reach. But now that the weekend is over and the numbers are in, right? Yeah. So it did 104 million globally. It did 50 something million domestically. So it did what it needed to do.
Yeah, and
So
you have to adjust that for the current economy too, because people don't go to the movies period like that no more. So
exactly.
it ain't 5-10 years ago when that would have been seen as like underperforming. People don't go to movies no more.
Correct.
So the numbers are just different now than the way that they used to be.
Yeah. So those numbers don't look like it bombed. So, and I've been seeing nothing but positive stuff on social media from black people that went out and saw it. So, again, yeah, he's completely using it. This is my thing. If he's going to sit here and just be a shock job and just say things for the shock value, Stephen A is rapidly, in my opinion, he's rapidly losing credibility. And because, his narrative is out there now. And this plays right into his narrative of talking about narratives. So he was trying to put a whole narrative out there that Will Smith fell off in the black community because of the Chris Rock fiasco. And he's putting that out there to non-black people. There's only 12.8% of us in the country anyway. So he's talking to others, 78%, 82% or whatever of people out there that's not us, that aren't tapped in. And so now, you know what I'm saying, Joe, an accountant, is like, man, those Negroes really need to get it together with. They're still upset about Will Smith. I slap a Negro, and I'm just joking. But no, but seriously. So yeah, man, he's trying to appease other people. Clearly, I don't know who he's talking to, but he ain't talking to me. So yeah, Stephen A, nice try. We're gonna call you out here on the conscious approach, bro. I'm you know what I'm saying, I'm watching you, bro. So and again, man, I'm here to neutralize. So if he's got a good point, I'll bag him up. But when he's out here offering his shit sandwiches where he's giving a compliment just to go in on you and then give you a compliment on the back end, which he did here to Will Smith, which he does to all athletes, I'm over it. You know what I'm saying? First of all, let me go ahead and start by saying that Will Smith is one of the most accomplished actors in the game.
He always has to give it. He always gives his disclaimer. He always he always does that. He always has to give his disclaimer.
Yeah, and then so he'll give you that first layer of bread, and it's like, all right, cool. But then here comes the shit. You know what I'm saying? Where he says, "I was absolutely disgusted with your behavior, though, and everybody else in the black community was, and I think you owe us all an apology or an explanation. But mind you, this is one of the best in the game." Yeah, man. Yeah, all of the movies. All right. Hitch. So I start naming all that stuff. So I'll be watching from afar. But let's stop, man. So he does that with everybody. So I'm tired of his formula. Be authentic, Stephen A. Because I'm coming for you, man. Real talk, man.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. There's people, black people included, who feel some type of way about Will Smith, and now they're on this. I'm not gonna watch his movies because I don't like the way blah blah blah. But trust me, the vast majority, if not all of those people, felt like that before that happened.
Correct.
Like the vast majority of those people already felt like that about him. They already felt like he was off, weird, whatever adjective you want to use. The Red Table stuff, the Jada Pinkett stuff with the Tupac stuff, like the song, the August Alsina stuff, the stuff with their kids. So the people who feel like that about him felt like that before that situation. They weren't suddenly swayed because of the Oscar slap. Correct. Now they're on this whole righteous indignation tip over Will Smith. Like it's not really that deep. You just get these people who are in the content business, and they truly do treat it like a business, and they're going to take these little nuggets and parlay it into content for their channel. That's really how I look at this, honestly. I don't really, and look, I don't know Stephen A. Smith. In my opinion, I personally feel as though he's not as offended by that as he says he is.
Of course
But
not.
but he's going to do that because he has to be this authority figure in the media game, because I guess that's the position that he believes that he holds. So he's going to say this stuff, and maybe he'll stand on business and be consistent enough to not go see the movie, especially because in this day and age, there are going to be some no life having people who are going to see him at the movies, and then they'll put it out there, and now he has to account for that and talk about it, right? So that can happen too. So he's probably smart enough to know that he can calculate himself in such a way, and maybe he'll just have to wait until the movie gets on Netflix to watch it, because he can't risk going to the movies to see it, because then people will call him out for being a hypocrite. But I don't know that he truly is as offended as he is laying into with this. I just think that it's something that's convenient for him to use for content. People who didn't like Will Smith didn't like him before that situation,
Right, like me.
and the people who did like him before that, they continue to be somebody who's like, okay, I'll still go watch the movie, I don't give a damn.
Mhm.
So I just don't like that whole let's make this another referendum on blackness and the black community and how we need to talk about this as black people. Like, there's so many other things that we can do this for, other than this rich guy who just went and slapped another rich guy and embarrassed himself. Like, that's all that was.
Facts.
Try again, Stephen A.
Yeah, next time, man. Next time.
Bro, we ain't with you on that.
Yeah, hey, bro. It's the conscious approach, bro. All right, let's say Stephen A's corner or whatever you talk about, bro. You gotta come harder than that.